Hi, everyone. Welcome to our career Q&A. Glad everyone can get on. We really appreciate your attendance. I'll record this so that we can watch it in the future or get it to other folks too. But hopefully you're on to get some info that means something to you. We want to make sure we're supporting you guys in a variety of ways, not just academics, but that next step is always at the back of your mind. And if you're a junior or senior, it should be at the front of your mind, getting that job and doing things, along the way to get there. So I'm really happy you could be on. The star of our show tonight is Aaron Pelloquin. Aaron is from Career Services. Been here, gosh, 3 years now, Aaron? 2?
Almost 2.
Almost 2. Okay. The pandemic has worked my time. So glad you could be on tonight. Aaron, as you should all know, is our primary connection in career services for student athletes. So if you ever need anything, you can contact him. If you are looking, to get career service appointments, you might get hooked up with someone that's connected to your major. So Aaron was just giving Jansen a hard time about not meeting with him yet in his field. So again, that's Aaron's a great resource at any time, but you also might meet with other folks in career services as well. But I'll start by turning it over to Aaron. Aaron's going to kind of introduce himself a little bit better than I did for him, and also talk a little bit about sort of steps that each class might be taking as we go. So you kind of think about where you're at in the process. Aaron?
Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, everybody. As Roy said, I am Aaron Pelloquin, career counselor here in our career services department. Before I get started, though, I did drop a document in the chat, and so I'm not going to pull it up on my background. I really think it would be more experiential and fruitful if you all pulled it up for yourselves and just kind of use that as a reference, as we're kind of being interactive during this process and just working together this evening. And if anybody had trouble with that, just let me know, opening the document up. It's a 4-year career development plan that we kind of use.
I don't see it in the chat, Aaron.
You don't see it?
Interrupt.
It's okay. Let me drop it in the chat again. Did it go this time? Yay. Okay. All right, good. Thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. Yeah, so you all can kind of use that just to take notes on, or if it sparks any, if it's a tangible document, so you can kind of use this to walk with you through the next couple years of your time here at SLU. And if there are any questions that kind of spark from that, feel free to email me or just let me know what might come up for you. But yeah, so I've been here at SLU for almost 2 years. I primarily work with, apart from being a liaison to student athletics, I'm also a liaison to international initiatives for students here at SLU. And I primarily work with the Parks College, so College of Engineering, Aviation, and Technology. So those are kind of, the worlds that I kind of bounce back and forth through here at SLU. When I took this job to come here at SLU and serve you all, part of this liaison area kind of developed out of my background of being a student athlete at Indiana State University. So I was on the track team there, and yeah, kind of just took notes and learned some really hard ways about career development, but also had some really key areas of faculty, staff support, peer support, and just coaches that kind of push forth career development, for us, and got creative as we spoke up and asked for different initiatives and different areas of having to be creative between balancing a travel schedule and, needing to get creative around different practice times, in order to make certain events that, would kind of just prepare me for life outside of being a student athlete. So those are just a few hats and a few pieces of my background. St. Louis native, born and raised, grew up in Webster Groves, coached there, served as a counselor in the Webster Groves School District before I came here to SLU, and coached there as well on the track team. So that's just a little bit about me.
Aaron, did you want to go through that 4-year?
Sure.
at
I'm
all and
sorry.
talk
I thought we
through
were going to
that?
get started with some questions. Okay. Yeah, I can walk through that. Yeah, so I know that you all have the 4-year student development plan pulled up, and I'm just going to kind of use some tangible action items just to kind of help outline this as you're reading through it. It's not overly wordy, but it is it's a snapshot, of just those areas that you should be leaning into at this time in your career development journey. And so there are kind of like 4 action words that you can kind of use just to kind of help map your time around this, which are explore, discover, network and experience, and launch. So, there isn't a year on here, but there are numbers to kind of help outline these details. So, for my freshman student athletes on this call, you'd want to be looking more towards the explore realm of things. For sophomores, you'd want to be leaning more toward the discover realm of this career development plan. And for my juniors, that would be more of the network and experience. And then for my seniors, that would be more of the launch. And of course, just like, any other realm of life that we're in, everything is always kind of overlapping with the next thing, and so you may be doing a little bit of networking and experience and launching into a season of interviewing, or you may be you may have picked up this major, but you've realized that you have this specific passion for this realm of career development or this realm of industry preference, and so you may be doing a little bit more exploring, in that industry, even as it's related to your major or things along that nature. And so as you kind of go through this, feel free. I think the best use of this, I don't want to just talk the whole time to you all. I would really like this to be interactive. And so feel free to ask questions. I really, reflection is going to be some of the freest and super on key, a tool that you can use just to kind of help map that career development aspect, if you will. And so I'll kind of just use that to start. There are some things that I do have, outlined too, that will kind of help you think more intentionally, about this. But I would like to open up the floor at this particular moment to see if there are any specific questions that are just kind of jumping out at the beginning of our time.
Great, thanks, Aaron. Again, I'll post that 4-year plan to Canvas as well. So if anybody is having any trouble opening or anything, I'll make sure it's there for you. We do have our first question from Jansen Gamilla on the swim team. I will mention, if anybody does have questions as we're going, feel free to put those in the chat, and then I can call on you as well. So we'll start with Jansen though. Thanks, Jansen.
Yeah, so the question I have is, what are some networking tips for student athletes who might not be able to make it to networking events? So I know 2 weeks ago there was a networking event and we had a swim meet during it. So yeah.
And that is an aspect that I get of being a student athlete for you all, in that perspective of being on the go all the time, in between maybe labs, in between different priorities for your sport, or just trying to survive, as a student athlete. I definitely get that. And so I think a couple of things that kind of come up first and foremost is, if you're finding yourself on the go and there are some events that are going on that really catch your attention, I would first start by utilizing your resources and following up with whoever hosted the event or whoever the event sponsors were, to see if there is any material that you can get from that specific event that you might have missed as well too. So I just kind of want to put that out there early on, really to kind of take priority in being bold and having to do probably more legwork and more follow-up with different events that you may have to miss due to different practice schedules. And so just wanted to put that out there. But as far as networking tips, LinkedIn is really, and I'm not, just throwing LinkedIn out there hey, go to LinkedIn. No, LinkedIn is really becoming a powerhouse, and they're not even done yet with all of the things that they have mapped out. One of my colleagues, who is a career counselor for the business school, is a LinkedIn expert. Her name is Diane Miller. And so if you are a business school student, I would highly encourage that you meet with her just to get your LinkedIn profile really developed so that it can be scouted out by different recruiters, scouted out by different individuals on LinkedIn who are looking directly to recruit student athletes, because there is a specific talent and a specific leverage and asset that you all bring, to every organization and every industry out there. And so I will start by, just getting curious on LinkedIn, looking up maybe it's a couple faculty and staff members who you really admire and really appreciate, seeing what do they have posts on their LinkedIn, or maybe there are a couple experts in your fields, that you maybe, want to get bold and encouraged to just like reach out with the message, or maybe there are some alumni out there on LinkedIn too, who you really aspire to kind of walk that path that they walked down. And so those are like a couple of like areas of networking that I would highly encourage. I also would highly encourage, for anybody on this call to schedule an appointment with your assigned career counselor and to do some networking, kind of run throughs. I know for me, that's an area that I really, specialize in and enjoy, leading students through that process of networking and figuring out what questions do I ask, if this is an area that I'm looking to pursue, but isn't directly parallel to, my major of study, like how can I leverage my experience and my knowledge and my training in the classroom to kind of navigate those conversations? Or how do I start with how do I lead with an email? Do I just put myself out there? Do I just kind of wait maybe for an introduction? And so those are a couple of tangible things that I would kind of just lead with. Does that answer your question?
Yep, it does. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Great question.
Thanks, guys. Next question I got is from Jack Micah.
Yeah, hi. I
Hey,
think a
Jack.
question that we had kind of talked about in our meeting about people wondering was how could like an athlete integrate their sport into their resume in like a professional manner so that it looks like it's something that could be seen as like a qualification?
Yeah, good question. And so I know that, Heather and Roy work hard and, are really intentional. Yes, I'm putting y'all on the spot. I believe y'all really do good work. So y'all are lucky to have them. I know they've pushed out, just some things as it relates to just like the athlete handbook that's, that serves to help you all walk through that. But, I really, as it relates to resume writing specifically, a lot of times you really do just have to talk this stuff out. Writing a resume or a cover letter can become overwhelming. It can become redundant sometimes. It's like, do I need to change my resume up for every 50 jobs I apply to? Do I need to have 50 different cover letters? What does that look like? And so I would start by saying, making sure that as a student athlete, it may just be best just to get everything on a document, everything that you've done kind of coming into college, different aspects of maybe course projects that you've done. Project experience on a resume is really, really powerful and really stands out. It creates questions for the interviewers when they're reviewing your resume as well. So that's just kind of one thing to keep in mind. And then also, I'm going to kind of jump around here. And so, feel free to like put questions in the chat and we'll get to them, if I need to zoom in on maybe one aspect, but I'm just going to kind of just throw it all out there. So there's the project experience aspect of like your resume, when you really can bring to life some of those course projects that you've worked on. If it was in a group, great, put it on your resume. If it's a way to kind of leverage those skills that you're developing into, put it on your resume. Like all of the things that you're doing in the classroom, may not be considered work experience, but you're in a degree program. You're not only training as an athlete, the word training, like that can be used in any aspect of life. We're always training, whether that's mentally, emotionally, like physically, academically, and so just thinking of those different ways in your major specifically as to like, what am I training, what skills am I training in the classroom or in the coursework? So that's kind of one aspect. As it relates to being an athlete specifically, I would really start to think about in what ways have you seen yourself develop as an athlete, and so taking that and then figuring out, the most appropriate way to develop those into bullet points, so what has being a student athlete taught you, and I'm sure there are some very universal practical ways that we can all agree upon: teamwork, collaboration, time management, so really all of the things that you're already doing, you just want to give yourself some room and put it on your resume, but not to make it, really make it practical, but you also, want to have some fun with it and make sure that it's thorough, and so that's kind of a practical example too. And the reality is, a lot of different industries enjoy bringing student athletes on, and for a lot of different reasons. And so I'll kind of pause there and see if there are any questions that might, kind of stem from that aspect. Thanks, Chad.
I would mention, I know Heather will support this statement. It's difficult to get, when you're doing a full-time job of being a student athlete, right? Doing your sport, it's hard to get another side job or an internship even in the summer. But I highly encourage you to get involved in the things that you can make time for. Things like SAAC, which I know a lot of the people on this call are already SAAC members, but tell your friends, recruit the younger generation. But the SAM program, the Student Athlete Mentors, is a huge thing to put on a resume that's directly connected to athletics, but a big thing to put on, I think, any resume. So any of you upperclassmen, or if you're a freshman now, look for that opportunity from when Heather sends that out. And then being a tutor. Again, a lot of you on here are tutors for me. You guys are great mentors to the people you work with that you tutor. So those are 3 jobs right there connected to athletics that I think are easy to get, the SAM program, especially, like we want people to help with that and help the freshmen coming in. And I think that's easy to put on a resume. That's not like I lifted weights 6 days a week or whatever, it's a real, resume builder in my mind. I will go on to our next question from.
Oh, I have a question.
Oh, Sarah's got a question about, okay, good.
Well, this is kind of unrelated, but it just popped up into my head. What would be a good way to go about maybe saying there was one semester where, you didn't really do too well academically? And if that were to be brought up in an interview, or where it's, oh, maybe my GPA isn't meeting the requirements for the job or internship I'm applying to, what would be a good way to go about explaining that?
That's a really good question. And that's a brave question too, so thank you for putting that out here for the greater good. I would say first and foremost, if there aren't any specific GPA requirements for an internship or a job, then I wouldn't put too much weight on self, and I would just let that play out, how it will play out in the long run. Also, I noticed that, a lot of individuals put GPAs on their resume. That's not a bad thing at all. And it's not, and I always say, it won't necessarily get your resume pulled, but it won't keep your resume from, not being considered as well too. So I definitely want to just put that out there. I think there can be a lot of pressure and misconceptions on having to like put your GPA on your resume. I've never put a GPA on a resume, and I got a couple degrees and it's never come up. So, just to make it real for you all too, and I think that could be, it can come up from a lot of different ways. So, but, just on the flip side, if there is, an internship or an opportunity that you're applying for, and there is a GPA requirement, and maybe you're like a point off from the GPA requirement, I would still go forth, submit everything, and maybe just do a little bit more legwork and have maybe like 1 or 2 reference letters attached to your application, that kind of serves to kind of just help, alleviate, maybe, that whole aspect, maybe stronger in one area and not so strong in one area. And how do I kind of bridge those gaps too? That's also, you all's time is valuable. And so I'll be transparent and say on the flip end, there are things that I've applied for where maybe I didn't meet that GPA requirement to get into this program. So I got a couple of reference letters, and that kind of subsided that too. So does that kind of give you a little bit of, okay. Thanks, Sarah.
Can I add to, like, again, I realize maybe you're asking specifically about an internship, but I would add, and, Aaron, obviously you can comment on this, is, yeah, I don't know that any job really, like, if you're not meeting a specific GPA requirement, but if you're good everywhere else, you're good at representing yourself, you're good in the interview, like your resume looks good, all that other stuff. If you didn't meet the GPA requirement, that's not going to keep you from getting the job. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay, great stuff. Our next question comes from Claire Coe in her car. I think she was just singing along with Britney Spears, but here she is for a question.
Hi, I
Hey,
was
Claire.
just wondering how the interview process differs from like Zoom, like how etiquette should be used, like in phone calls and in person and stuff.
Sure, absolutely. There are always advantages and disadvantages, to Zoom, to a phone call, or a phone interview, or a Zoom interview, or an in-person interview. I will start with the in-person interview. The in-person interview offers, maybe some career development experts would say something different, who knows? But when you're in person, you really get to read the room, you get to read nonverbals, and you get a different sense of if there is rapport and chemistry being built among you and the interview team, who's kind of facilitating that process. And so I think that's one of the biggest things, and then apart from that, that's an advantage. And then, traditional etiquette, of course, would be like if you're on Zoom, a blank background as much as possible, still business casual as well, for the in-person medium. For the Zoom and in-person as well too. I'm hopping around a bit, so just roll with me, you all. And then for the phone aspect of like an interview process, like that gives you the option of like maybe having some notes right then and there, kind of just like a cheat sheet, to kind of help guide you through that. You don't want your notes to overwhelm you, but you do kind of maybe want some like your key like 5 bullet points, or just kind of like small notes to self on, if this question gets asked, boom, I already know where I'm pulling from of my experience or my passion, or my aspirations, or what's impacted me, so those are kind of a few aspects, as it relates to just the different interviewing platforms. And of course, things like connection, like Wi-Fi or technology. Of course, those are some things that may be out of your control, but always try to troubleshoot and give yourself a fair shot beforehand as well. But those are just like some overlapping arching areas, of course, as it relates to just like the interview etiquette, like that could be even zoomed more in on, in raising different questions like, well, how am I preparing for this interview? Like, have I done some mock interview preparation? Have I maybe had time to talk to individuals who, represent this industry, and kind of just done some experiential learning with them, and ask them questions. Have I reflected on my experience, going into this interview, or just my aspiration, like, and that's enough too to like drive a really great interview. Let's say you don't have any experience at all, like maybe like some of those like hard research, or like, specific like hard industry related experience to some of these areas that you all may want to go into, like that's okay as well. So those are a few things that kind of just come up that, I think can apply to a couple different areas, or and even just a couple of different areas of career development.
Thank
I
you.
have another question. Sorry to interrupt. Are there any, like feedback that you all get from employers regarding interviews that SLU students do and stuff like that? Like any key things that keep recurring, keep coming up that students maybe are doing in interviews that these guys want to avoid, things like that?
I can't, I'd say communication probably would be the biggest thing. Knowing how to effectively communicate inside of an interview, communicate about the skill set, communicate about past experiences or present experiences, and being able to really to communicate in a thorough way, and so if I'm asked the question, not just, like, can you tell me about a time that you had experience coaching a student? Yeah, there was one time I coached I was a track coach and I coached sprinters. It's like, well, that isn't telling me nothing, and so really following through, inside of an interview, which I think it's a hiccup for everybody, which is why mock interview preparation is so fruitful. And so like today, the career services team, we hosted mock interviews for the nursing school for seniors who are graduating. And it was a very fruitful process, for those students who got to partake in that. So really giving yourself a fair chance to really get those interview kinks out, is just like stretching. It's just like, a cool down and a warm up, so you really want to do the same thing as it relates to interviewing.
All good stuff. I'll throw in a couple things too, not really the different types of interviewing like Claire asked, but some things that we hear when people are being interviewed in our office. Make sure that you're dressed appropriately. I think that's something, again, there's questions there, but business attire, like we said, we'll often get like, can you believe what she was wearing? Like, that's not a good thing. Make sure you know what that dress should look like. Then follow up after the interview. If you've gotten to the interview stage, don't walk out of the interview and not let them know you want the job. Follow up with an email, handwritten card, like say, I had a great time today at the interview and can't wait to work there every day. Like let them know what you want. Don't be coy about it. If you're to that level, of an in-person interview, make sure you follow up and let them know what you really want. And then I think too, like in the interview process, it could be, if you're at the final stages, you might have a long day of an interview and be present. It's easy to, phone, distracts us. Like be engaged with the people in the room. I don't think too many people would be looking down at their phones, but we're in a new generation and I see it a lot just in life, right? So it could carry over. I wouldn't think anyone would do it, but I just, turn off the phone so it doesn't ring in your pocket. Don't get distracted by anything but the people you're talking to. So I think those are some big ones we hear of in the interview processes we hear at school. Heather, do you have any that you think of in that world?
No, I mean, I feel like you hit on most of them. I mean, I think the communication piece is huge. Definitely, yes, dressing appropriately. And that also, I think about, this isn't career development related necessarily, but like when you do presentations in your classes, I know we have student athletes that tend to go like maybe in sweats and stuff like that. Like if you can get a little dressed up, do that. It'll be good practice. And sorry, my kids are yelling in the background. It'll be good practice for you when you have to get dressed up and do some networking in a professional setting, stuff like that. I think, yes, preparation is key. Do your homework on whatever organization or company you're trying to interview with. And send those thank you notes.
That's a great one. Make sure you know about the company. That's very good.
Yeah. Can I have one more thing to that?
Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Just something that's coming up, just kind of like one of those nuggets is, regardless of what industry you're interviewing in, those communication and then the ability to communicate, like how you problem solve. That's something new that's come up as I've met with employers who have come through career services. And, I just get curious and I ask, what different ways that, I can pass on little nuggets to students who are interviewing for those specific roles as to the students who kind of come through, my office, but ability to communicate how you problem solve and walking them through, with detail, like how you would use that skill or how you problem solve, how you got to the answer. And just, ability to communicate that in very different, in various aspects, it really does set you apart, and it also kind of contributes to, okay, this student has done their homework And then it also it communicates confidence too, you know, and so, you know, in an interview, they're never a good interviewer, you know, of good ethic. I always say, like, they're not looking for a right or wrong answer. They just want to know that you care about getting to a right answer, or that you're able to, you know, work inside of a team that gets to multiple answers, you know, and so all about kind of, you know, like that solution focus piece too. So that's just something that I really, you know, just felt led to share before it got away.
Great. We got one more question in the queue from Sarah Daniels again. Great. Sarah's got another question. I will mention Sarah dropped in a great note in the chat as well, saying that coaching is good to put on a resume. So, you know, if you're working at a summer camp, or, you know, even just a weekend camp, 2-day camp kind of thing, all that's great on a resume. So look for those opportunities, doing the thing you love, playing the sport you already do all the time, pass that knowledge down to younger generation, and goes right on the resume. So I think that's a great note, Sarah. What was your question?
So the last, the last question we kind of brainstormed as a group, and it might be a bit redundant because we have kind of touched on this a good bit. But in that PDF you sent, it said in the year 1 is to join a club. And a lot of us don't have time to do clubs, extracurriculars. So what are some specific experiences in within athletics that we could use in resume building or interviews? And maybe even specific instances or experiences that we might not be aware that we could use.
Yeah, that's good. You know, I'll try to, okay, I'll go a couple different places with this. I want to echo just Roy and Heather in when they mention all the things that you all are already doing. And I think that's something too that can maybe be glossed over. It's like, no, most times you're already doing all of these things, you know, whether it's the tutoring or the other experiential opportunities that come up, or, you know, working alongside of one of your coaches and helping to come up with something, you know, whether that's playbook writing, like the list could go on and on and on and on and on and on, you know. But if you're just finding yourself, you know, like overly, you know, feeling stretched to the max, and there is a specific area that you're passionate about, and there's room to like create something or to, you know, just volunteer yourself inside of, you know, athletics, then I would just start to be bold and to present those opportunities, and honestly, just do it. You know, this is the day and age more than ever, you know, and if you don't already know, I'm going to say it, you know, where, you know, more universities need to and want to be behind, you know, the voices of their students. You know, you're the primary stakeholder, you all matter, you're important. And so if there is room, you know, within whatever realm of campus that you find yourself in the most, room to do something and just kind of run with it, it shows creativity, it shows passion, and it shows courage and boldness. And so I would kind of answer that question on that end, as opposed to everything else that, you know, we can lay out, you know, but if it's there and it's not clicking, maybe there's a different way for it to click, and maybe it just hasn't been presented yet, you know, to the student body. And so, you know, but so along with that, if there are, and so I get it, the timepiece, I really do, you know, but get creative with and lean onto your faculty and your staff who are a part of your academic, you know, the academic piece, you know, of being a student athlete too. You know, I don't know that I could have gotten as far as I have in the world of education or just like personal inspiration without leaning on faculty members who took an interest and who poured into me and who inspired me and who still serve as mentors to this day. You know, and so, and they understood it. They would challenge me too on like, create a way, think of a way, you know, and so I couldn't always pull a fast one, you know, so I will be honest about that piece, you know, but nonetheless, I say all this just to inspire, you know, inspire you all to lean on your faculty and staff. Like they are, you know, they like are here for a reason. So if there are ways you're finding yourself to want to get involved, but the time piece is really coming up, maybe there will be a next time, or maybe there will be like a small window of an opportunity where maybe you can hop onto a research project that is just, you know, maybe just a stint of a couple of weeks, or maybe there is like one Saturday morning where they need volunteers to help run this event or to come in and, and to, do some extracurricular work. So being creative and curious is going to be really more of a driver, for student athletes, because you have to think different. You have to think multifaceted in almost every aspect, especially depending on the demand, the different demandments of your specific major, and so if that sparked up something, shoot me an email. I can help kind of maybe coach you more one-on-one in that realm of things. But that was a great, I'm glad that you kind of came back around to that, to kind of continue to like get these ideas, flowing, in a space and environment like this. Thanks. I'm going to drop my email in the chat as well.
While you're doing that, I'd love to throw in something on that too. I think the other way that you all can add stuff to your resume is through community service. So you guys will do stuff as a team. Keep track of that stuff. So I know, I get busy and everybody should be keeping their resume up to date and stuff like that, but you don't, you just get busy. But if you all have the ability to okay, what is stuff that I did my freshman year? Create a list of all of those things. And if you aren't sure exactly what those were, if there's stuff with your teams, ask your coaches to keep a list of that stuff and add it on to there. I think, again, if there are things that you're passionate about, like Aaron mentioned, approach your coaches and see if that's something that you all can do. I mean, again, if time is limited, maybe you guys can do that as a group activity within your team. If it's something like with a homeless shelter or, different things like that, like the coat drive and stuff. Or if you want to do some tutoring in an elementary school or something like that, if that's something you're passionate about, talk to your coaches about that. And that might be something that you guys can do as a team. Maybe that's on an off day, and they give you those couple hours to go and do something. That's something you can add to your resume. And we want to hear about those things that you all want to do. Again, not just from the SAAC reps, but if there are other folks on your team, yes, please have them encourage them to talk to their coaches, talk to Janet, talk to me, talk to Roy, see if there are things that you guys can do. Again, maybe it's not necessarily within a team, but we might be able to get a group of 10 student athletes to go and do, I don't know, some cleanup in a neighborhood or something like that on a weekend or something like that. It's all stuff that will help people, but you can also add it to your resume.
All right, great job, everybody. Thanks so much, the SAAC folks, for being on, and as well everybody else. Again, being on here is probably not necessarily step one. A lot of you might be 14 steps into your process, and this is one of them. But if this is the first kind of thoughts you've had about career, I hope we're helping spark some ideas, like Aaron has said, and then run with it. Start talking to other people, talk to people in your field, talk to people your parents know, get the word out that you're getting close to that job seeking, right? So we want to help as much as we can, and in a lot of ways, you've got student is a full-time job, athlete's a full-time job, and finding a job is a full-time job. when you're out of work or in between jobs, as we like to say, it's stressful, and you spend a lot of time on it. So you're kind of in a tough spot with the stress involved of being a student athlete and then trying to be a grown-up. But it's nice that you potentially have some options, right? There's all sorts of ways to get started in different areas, and you'll go down a path and it won't be right. You'll find yourself going a different way. And that's normal. That's something everybody, I think, does at this point. So yeah, lean on Aaron, lean on your assigned career counselor, and then let us know if you have any other questions. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to stay on and has a question, was too scared to ask, please do so. Aaron and I will hang for just a minute.
Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
Thanks, Aaron. Well, looks like Maddie, I don't know if you have a question. I think she's just probably in the other room.
Yeah.
All right. Let me stop recording.